You're listening to audio from the Decidedly podcast. For more information, find us on Instagram at Decidedly Podcast.
It's football season. It's football season now.
It is indeed.
And I've made a big decision.
Oh, let's hear it.
I am now a Detroit Lions fan.
You were telling me this the other day. You mentioned it kind of offhand, and I do not understand that decision at all.
Here's why.
All right, let's hear it.
All right. I'm a Cowboys fan.
All right.
I'm an Aggie. Went to Texas A&M.
Right.
Those are my teams.
Okay.
They do the same crap every year.
Okay.
All right. Both of them.
Can you believe Appalachian
All right, but
State
listen.
A&M?
No, I can't. But this is what they do. Every year, they make some moves in the offseason.
All right.
They recruit some good players. They re-sign. So the Cowboys re-sign somebody or trade somebody or whatever.
Yeah.
And all the media hype gets behind them. Oh, this is
going to be their year.
This is our year. We're coming. And they get ranked highly in the preseason polls or in the ESPN power rankings.
Yeah.
Maybe they go out and win a couple games. Maybe they even beat someone they maybe shouldn't have beat. And inevitably, they disappoint me. And they fall short of the far too high expectations they set. Now, the benefit of this year, the blessing that both of my teams have given me is that they had the decency in week one to let me know that they're awful. All right. So instead of having my sights and my heart and my hopes set on a college football playoff appearance or a Super Bowl appearance, and then having the team regress to winning only 8 games and that being a failure,
right?
I would rather cheer for a team that if they won 4 games would be an utter success.
So you're just going to root for the underdog the whole time?
I'm going to root for the next NFL season. I'm going to root intentionally for the worst franchise in NFL history because all that I have to gain is a win. A surprise win, and I have nothing to lose. If they go out and lose every single remaining game on their schedule, that would be funny.
No, this is the worst decision.
You're crazy.
No, it is. Here's why. Because it takes there's no courage in rooting for the underdog. Because if Detroit totally just bombs it, then you can go, well,
These are my teams. The Detroit Lions and wherever Tom Brady is playing.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
And so if I want Tom Brady to win a Super Bowl and I want the Lions to win 4 games. And if they're playing each other in the regular season, I want to see the Lions win because I want Dan Campbell and the horrible roster that they've piecemealed together in Detroit I want them to have a little bit of success. And I'm not going to get emotionally invested in a team that's going to disappoint me. So that's the choice that I've made. You're not going to talk me out of it. My Lions jersey is on the way. I'm going to the Cowboys.
You bought a jersey.
Well, I bought a polo shirt.
All right.
I bought a polo shirt. And I'm going to go this October, Cowboys Stadium. Dallas is playing Detroit. And
wait, you're not going to vote. You're not going to root for Detroit in Cowboy State in Cowboy Stadium.
This is over for me. It's over.
Oh,
Detroit
you turncoat.
I'm a Detroit fan now. You can't talk me out of it. And guess what? I still get to watch my team on Thanksgiving.
Well, there's that. You can actually watch both teams. Yeah.
So I know that's going to cause some family drama around Thanksgiving.
I'm not a big enough fan that I care about this.
May strain the relationships that we have. But we learned a lot about family relationships and marriage, parenting, and overall life coaching from Dr. Kim Swales today. She is a Ph.D. in marriage and family communications for over 25 years. She's done her postdoctorate studies in counseling formally. She was a researcher and college professor, and now she is in private practice as a marriage, relationship, parenting, and life coach. She's published research on gender communication, friendship, family, marital communication, as well as relationship maintenance. She won a prestigious national award for her research on communication between men and women, which I'll go read later. She hosts the Connecting podcast. We talked with Kim about grounding practices, reducing emotional reactivity, breathwork, the Ignatius Way of Decision-Making, and not trusting your gut. I know you're going to learn a lot. As always, I'm Sanger Smith with my dad, Sean Smith, and this is Decidedly. Kim, glad you made it.
Hi. How are you guys?
Hey, Kim.
It's great.
Sanger thought we were actually talking about being grounded this morning. And so he was concerned that he was going to have to stay in his room and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know anything about that.
About being grounded?
That never happened to me.
I just, Summer, your sister just admitted that when she was a kid, she would purposely get grounded if she knew there wasn't anything exciting going on the following weekend.
She would save up her bad behavior.
Yeah, she would just take one, and just like, hey, I'm going to come in, after curfew because there's not anything going on next week. It won't, no big cost.
She was always weighing the benefits.
Yeah,
right.
She was banking her punishments ahead of time.
That's true.
Right.
True.
That's
so, Kim, we had
smart.
wanted to talk to you about being grounded. Tell me a little bit about your background. You were a marriage and family communication. You have a Ph.D. in that.
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of counseling and therapy with couples, individuals, and those types of things. What are you focusing on mainly in your counseling and therapy work?
I kind of have three areas in my clientele. I would say my favorite thing is honestly parenting coaching. I love helping parents become better parents. And I have so many people who tell me like, I just thought this would be instinctual, but it's really not. And also, from our generation, Sean, I don't know how old you are, but I'm going to guess maybe we're in the same bracket. I have a 25-year-old, 21-year-old, and 16-year-old. So some young adults and still one teen. The world has changed drastically. And so parenting has to kind of keep up with those changes. And what I love about parenting coaching is it's very practical, and parents are so motivated to do the work because they really want to do that well. I also do marriage coaching, marriage counseling, and people aren't quite as motivated there. And that's frustrating, sometimes for me, because I don't know, I find it funny now that people are more motivated to be good parents than they are to be good marital partners. But I do find that sometimes. So that works that work is a little tougher, but I enjoy it, especially when the people are willing to put in the work. And then the third area I do is just really kind of support people going through life transitions, some anxiety or depression. I kind of stay out of the heavy psychology. I don't really do addictions counseling or eating disorders. I just help people really kind of with life things.
Yeah. Why do you think people are more open to counseling when it's parent related than when it's marriage related?
I've thought about that a lot, and I think it's more work. I think so many parents now are deriving like more pleasure from kind of watching their kids do things. It's almost like they're reliving their own childhood.
You can quit on your kids. Or you can quit on your marriage. You can't quit on your kids as easy.
You're right. And I think people get into this mode of, they're going along and it might not be great, but it's okay. And there's a lot of, to repair your marriage, I think you really have to be very vulnerable, and it's kind of giving up control a little bit because you have to do things for the other. And parenting, I think people still feel like they're in control, even though I try to tell them, they got to kind of really meet their child where their child is in parenting sometimes, not coddle them by any means. But so I don't know. And I think
I think when you look at parent counseling, I think there's probably the assumption as a baseline when you go in that the kid's screwed up. It's the kid's issue, obviously, because I'm the parent and it's the kid. Yeah. And so the kid just doesn't know yet. And I think that there's a risk in marriage counseling that, hey, this might turn on me.
You're right.
Maybe I'm the problem.
I might be the problem.
You're right. And you know what, Sean? 9 times out of 10 in parenting coaching, the parent's the problem too.
Yeah, well, no, I
And I just got a puppy.
He knows
and
that from experience.
I know that. Hey, now.
Yeah. And they'll say, can you see my 10-year-old? Can you come to, and I'm like, no, I can teach you how to parent your 10-year-old. And I've just got a new puppy. He's at my feet now, and I'm praying he stays there for the remainder of the recording. But I found that with him too. Like, even puppy bad behavior is my fault or my husband's fault. So we're working with a trainer to do that. And so
I don't have kids, but I imagine if you've got dramatic problems from your 10-year-old and they're so severe you need a counselor, it's probably your fault.
Yeah. But
It's got to be.
Sanger, it's not even serious stuff. Like, a lot of times it's people coming to me, their kid loved to play baseball, and then all of a sudden they don't want to leave their room. 9 times out of 10, that's a video game addiction problem. But it's not like they're failing or they're refusing to do things. A lot of the times it's just people want a little more peace in the family, or they realize, they don't have a consistent method of discipline. So people aren't even coming to me with severe problems. Now, obviously, some children do get depression or do get anxiety, and those kids do need counseling. But
Sure.
I'm doing what I'd call more parent coaching to help them just be more effective parents, more empathic parents.
What was your journey like to finding this calling in this career?
I love that question because it's not what people expect. And I'm real open about it. But my dad had an affair and left our family when I was in like 6th, 7th grade. And I was in Pennsylvania in a small Catholic school. We were like the only family going through divorce. And it was very, very, very painful. And I felt so embarrassed. And it was just such a traumatic thing. We had to move. Like, our lifestyle just changed drastically. And not at that moment, I did know that I would get as much education as I could because my mom did not. And she was a stay-at-home mom. And so it really impacted our family. She had to find a job. And so I did in that moment say, I'm going to be as educated as I can possibly be. But then later on, as I got to college and started studying things, I was like, wow, there's a whole area of professionals who can help families either so that they don't get divorced and they can repair their relationships, or when they do get divorced, there are professionals who can help them, the parents co-parent well together so it's not as traumatic for the kids, or to help the kids get through those times. And so it really was personal experience. And I'm sure you hear that with a lot of the entrepreneurs and business owners that you guys interview, that it's something that happened to them that motivated them toward their calling.
You're totally right, though, Kim. I think that for entrepreneurs to be successful, you have to have that passion. If you're going to take the risk to be a business owner, you've got to have a passion that's deeper and more significant than I want to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to keep going if you're not making a lot of money?
Yeah.
What if you're not getting that freedom you wanted? What if you're not getting the benefits of business ownership that you thought you would get? And that's about as personal of a reason to become a marriage counselor as I can think of, other than having gone through something in your own marriage.
Yeah. And I share that story very openly. I do a lot of public speaking because I do want people to know that I've been in their shoes and that I am doing this not just for the living. Like, my husband teases me all the time that, so sometimes he's like, you don't charge enough. You're basically doing volunteer work sometimes. But if I can help people have happier, healthier families, that I'm happy. And pay my bills.
that's worth it all to do that.
And I love what I do. It never, ever feels like work. It really doesn't. And I know some people say that. My son's an entrepreneur too. And I know sometimes, like, the billing part or the email part, that feels like work. But the actual work, consulting with my clients, never feels like work.
Yeah.
All the time. I find I do this work because I love this work. I have, I try not to tell too many people this, but I have found that I forgot to bill people.
All the time.
I was like, oh, shoot. For a few years, and then I was like, oh, darn it.
All the time.
Yeah. I hate that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to go back. I'm going to go, hey, for the past 3 years, you haven't actually been paid.
You've actually never paid.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. The best clients they'll know that.
Yeah, they'll know. They'll bring it up.
They'll actually ask you. Man, I had one
raised-
client ask me this year. This is like, no matter what, I will always work with these people because they came to me and they said, "Hey, like we know inflation's pretty high right now. Like, do you need to raise your fee?" And I was like, "Oh my God. Like, I
nice.
love you. No, actually, I won't do that because you asked."
I was just going to say that, Sanger. I had a client recently that was overpaying me for, I don't know, 3-4 sessions in a row. And the first session we did, it was an emergency and we did go overtime. And then the second session was also an emergency on a weekend. But then she kept doing it. And I messaged her and I said, I think you're confused about my rate. You've been overpaying me. And she said, no, I've been doing that on purpose. So I had some, yeah.
Maybe she was
said,
prepaying.
You should be paying for this.
Prepaying for more emergencies.
Yeah, exactly.
He goes, or that's someone who's really self-aware and knows they're hard to deal with. Like, no, it's gotta cost more to deal with me.
I'm very lucky. I actually really enjoy all of my clients.
I am to a point in my career where I'm only working with people that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell all my clients that.
Yeah.
I say, you're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I do the same. And people ask me, how can you select? And it's interesting, but I can know in the first email when people are trying to get an appointment with me, if they're going to be a high maintenance client or.
Oh, really?
Or yeah.
What gives it off in an email?
When they tell me I can only meet at 8:00 on Saturday morning. Well, I don't work Saturday morning. Or
I certainly don't work 8:00 on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
If I was going to work on Saturday,
it wouldn't be 8:00.
Wouldn't be 8:00.
So that's a tip off. Another tip off is when they type out, a 3-page email of their whole life, psychological history and story, with someone who they have no windows of time, because I ask people, tell me generally the days and windows of time you're available so I can see if I have a slot for you. But so when they have no availability or they just want to tell you their whole story before they're even your client, those are kind of 2 tip offs for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have that, Sanger, with
I can tell that, like, people who it's just impossible to meet with them because no one's that busy, so it's like it's either someone who can't manage their own calendar
Mm-hmm.
well, or it's someone who isn't prioritizing the work that they're paying me to do. And I don't want to do that. Like, even if they want to pay it, they're not going to implement anything that we talk about.
Yeah.
Because they can't even find the time to come in. Now, there are some exceptions for sure. Some people like, hey, these are my windows of work. I don't have a lot of flexibility. I don't want to use my vacation time. But that's not usually the type of person that I'm working with anyway.
Yeah.
So that excuse doesn't fly very much unless, I think I have one client who like literally is an hourly employee. I give him a hard time a little bit because I'm like, dude, you don't even need to be working. Like you're like,
why are you still doing
you
this?
don't really need financially to be doing this, but okay, fine. I get it.
And you probably get this too. I get some clients who will bring articles to me or send me articles about what the market is doing or something, or opinions on the market. Kim, do you get clients sending you articles about the stuff that they're dealing with you on?
Sometimes, not as much, but I occasionally, and I'm going to be honest, as I'm sitting here thinking in my head, it's always been males.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, because we got to know everything.
Maybe. And sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes they're bringing me the articles that I would suggest that they read. One time I recently had to tell a client, just let me do my job, because that particular client was trying to email me ahead of the marriage sessions to say, make sure you bring up this or make sure you
He was front running.
That. Yes.
Talk to her about this.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
I can see that happening.
And knowing the person's occupation, I kind of understood that that's sort of their MO, but I just gently said, you have to trust me to do my job. And it's really not appropriate to send me these before session.
No, I
You know,
wouldn't think so.
yeah.
I'll get one from this one client, and it feels like homework. It's like, this is what, this person thinks, the market's going to do. I'm like, well, obviously, I know this, but like now I have to craft a response
tailored to this specific insight of this one author.
Right. So Kim, we were talking about how being grounded was helpful. So when you talk to clients, you talk with people in marriage, you talk to parents with kids. Does this grounding issue in terms of trying to become more grounded, does that come up a lot in your discussions?
It does. I would say, I was thinking about this. It comes up more in my clients who have anxiety. We do a lot of grounding exercises and kind of take time to be present. It does come up in decision making, but I guess I don't use that terminology a lot with my clients who I'm working with decision making. We go through kinds of things so that they don't make reactive decisions. And I always tell people when they feel like their emotions are controlling their body, or I give them different grounding exercises to do to kind of get back in the present and get back in the moment. The majority of the time I use grounding or work with people on being grounded is really in anxiety.
Well, it would seem like if somebody can become more grounded, that you'd be in a better place to make better decisions. I would think.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that when people make poor decisions, what I see in my practice, when people regret their decisions, let's say, it's usually because the decision was based in fear or a really strong emotion, anger, resentment. And the people that are usually happy with their decisions didn't make the decision when they were based in an emotional state.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think when I've made reactive decisions, you almost instantly regret it. You can tell in the moment. I'm in a high reactive state. I'm doing something I am not going to be happy about. Almost immediately after this event is over. I've been in that situation. I think we all have.
It's not so much, I think, making a decision that is based in emotion as it is anytime emotions are guiding the decision-making process, we're less likely to make decisions that are aligned with our values. So not all emotional decisions are reactive, but a reactive decision is almost always an emotional decision. What else would I be reacting to, right?
Yes.
But I could be depressed for a month and making decisions the whole time. I could be excited for a month. I could be fearful for weeks on end. And so it could have those emotions linger for a long time and still impact the decision-making process. And the reason that's negative is that if I've made a decision foundationally on the basis of an emotion, I've likely not reflected on what's truly important to me, because I'm going to prioritize this fear.
Right.
Going to prioritize this excitement.
And I would even add to that, Sanger, that not only are you not really examining your values as much, but you're also probably not thinking about how your decision will impact other people around you. And certainly that applies to everybody in all walks of life, but it especially applies to the things that I work on, because I really work on relationships and connection. And so when people make reactive decisions or emotionally based decisions, they're really just thinking about their emotion, or not even thinking about it. Their emotion is guiding them, and they're not really thinking about the fallout. Like one of the examples that I see a lot in my practice is extramarital affairs. And in the moment, that seems really exciting and really attractive. And you'd be surprised, but so many people just don't think about the emotional fallout for all the people around them. They might think about how it would impact their spouse or their partner. They don't think about how it's going to impact their children, or how it's going to impact their parents or their neighbors or their church, or, because that kind of thing, once it comes out, it affects all those people. It changes all the relationships. But they're just making that poor decision out of the emotion in the moment.
Oh, for sure. I had a discussion with a friend of mine who was going through a divorce a few years ago, and he was planning on getting divorced, and I said, well, here's something you should know is that your kids it's going to take them about 10 years to 15 years to get over this. And they're not going to like you for a while.
Yeah.
And he's like, what, and I was like, yeah, that's how that's going to go. They're going to, this is going to really impact them.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how many people don't think about how their decisions will impact those around them. They really just think about how the decision's going to impact them
in the short term.
Yeah.
Not even in the long term.
Yeah.
Right. So when you think about that term being grounded, right? I mean, how are you defining that for your clients? Like, what do you think about when you think about that term being grounded?
It's being aware and present in the moment. And when I do grounding exercises with my clients, it's usually to get in touch with all of their senses and to kind of get to a calm baseline so that they can think rationally and so that those emotions aren't overtaking them. And usually, I'll be honest, it's usually anxiety. Sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's excitement, sometimes it's depression. But you can be grounded and be depressed. You can even be grounded and be afraid. It's just that you're kind of getting a hold of those physical reactions. And almost like, I would use an analogy because I do think it's hard to actually describe it, like that there's a static and you're kind of turning down the static so that you can hear your own thoughts and your own wisdom and your own logic and your own breathing and just kind of calming down your sympathetic nervous system so that you can think clearly and be in the moment. And so much we have so much stimuli around us that it's like background static all the time. So it's kind of turning down the static. How
you made the comment somebody could be grounded and depressed. And my initial, I don't really understand enough about either one, maybe. But how
Let's start with grounding. I mean, when I hear the term grounding, I think walking barefoot in my garden.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for some people that could be, but so my favorite exercise for grounding to do really quickly with people when they feel a panic attack coming on, sometimes I have people do jumping jacks because you have to kind of focus a little bit on the coordination and you kind of have to stop focusing on going down that road of panic. It's to kind of bring you back to the present moment without distractions. And so one of the other things I'll have people do, and sometimes not even when they're in a bad state, but just people who are overwhelmed, when they go on their walks, I say, just smell. What do you smell? Do you smell laundry detergent? Sometimes when I'm walking through my neighborhood, I can smell from the vents the laundry. I live in Houston, Texas. There's always somebody got a brisket on the grill. I can always smell, meat.
You can smell laundry detergent on the street?
You know why? Because I pay attention. Yes, when I'm walking down the street.
Or do you have like the world's most impressive nose?
No, I don't. Sanger, try it. I live in a neighborhood with all homes, family homes. And if I am walking down the street and someone's running their dryer, I can smell from the vent. But you have to, that's what being grounded is. You hit you hit it on the nose, no pun intended, but you have to notice those things. And you probably would if you noticed. We're so busy listening to a podcast, looking around, thinking about our to-do list that our senses are not taking in just the normal information.
Okay, I feel that. I can hear you. Like if
you say,
I'm thinking I'm going to go ride my bike later. I'm going to go ride my bike later today. I'm going to go down the trail. I've never thought about what it smells like unless it smells terrible.
Bad. So this is what I want you to do next. Say, okay, what do I smell? What do I hear? We don't even pay attention to the noises. I will hear the leaf blower, but I often don't hear the birds unless I say, okay, what do I hear right now? What do I feel? I feel a breeze. I feel the sun. I feel the wet grass.
Reminding ourselves to be present. Okay.
And we can do that best through our senses. So I tell people, go from top to bottom. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? I don't really taste anything on my walks, but you can do it other times. What do I feel? So you go through your five senses and you ask yourself, and that brings you to the present. And if you're really working on being right there in the present, you're not distracted by all those other things. What am I doing later? When's this deadline? Did I answer that email? What time do I have to pick up the kids? Am I feeling anxious? You're just focusing on the moment. And that's something we should all do every day for mental health, not just when we have to make a decision or when we're feeling anxious.
So start at the head,
Mhm.
work down to the toes. What am I thinking? What am I seeing? What am I smelling? What am I tasting, I guess? What am I
What do I
feeling?
feel on my skin? Yeah.
See,
Like,
now
even
you got
just
me
feeling
like,
the seat.
look at this, Kim. I'm so uncomfortable now because I'm like, I feel
Why are you
this-
uncomfortable?
Because now it's like too many things that I'm thinking about. I'm like, this stupid little cord from my headphones is like on my forearm, and my shirt. Oh, well, my shirt's on my neck and my chest and my abdomen and my shoulders.
Well, you remember when we were talking
I
with
want to
Jeremy?
ignore all these things.
Remember when we were
You
talking
don't
with
do
Jeremy?
it now, Sanger. You don't do it now.
Now
I
you're
mean,
supposed to be focusing. On
Yeah, I
something
would
different.
not say this is the time to be grounded.
Hold
try to
on.
do it my walks.
I'm sorry. I'm smelling right now. I'm gonna need you to. I'm past the hearing.
This is something you want to do when you're feeling anxious. I tell people, if you walk, run, mountain bike, whatever your activity like that, do it then. Do it when you're outside.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna report back.
Okay, good.
After I'm done today, and
Okay,
I'll let
good.
you know if I smell any Tide.
Well, do you remember when we were golfing with Jeremy Pointsnow out at the event?
Yes.
And so he was so grounded because
This guy's a blind golfer.
Yeah, so Kim, he couldn't
Wow.
see, and
Wow.
yet so we were lining up to take these golf shots, and he, before I even said anything, he said, "So I know there's water over to the left," and he motioned over to where this little lake was, and I said, "Wait a minute! I thought you you couldn't see. How do you know there's water over there?" He goes, "You don't hear it?" I was like, "No,
Yeah.
This is a pond.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
a
it's
little
not the
pond.
ocean.
How did he hear the pond?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Holy crap, dude. I mean, your senses are way above mine when it comes to being aware of what's going on, even though he had lost one of them."
Well, and that does happen with people that are either hearing impaired, often their sight is better. And so we do know that, but we are all better. We can all get better at tapping into that. It's just that we let all the noise distract us. But if you focus on that, you would be able to do it too.
So when you think about being grounded, okay, let's say you go through this exercise of sort of grounding, of starting at the head, and what am I thinking? What am I seeing, feeling, hearing, tasting? What's on my feet? All of those types of things. How does that translate into being able to make better or more quality decisions?
Because what we know we do is we sort of, when you ground yourself like that, you calm down your nervous system and you're more in the present. And we're just better able to make all decisions when that emotion isn't the number one thing driving us.
It sounds so fake until you do it.
Yeah.
Like-
I've done it
Like
before.
the something as simple as breathing. Oh, I used to hate, like when I was a kid, being mad at something. Take a deep breath. I think the problem with these messages is they're communicated to like,
Oh, by the time you're already pissed.
yeah,
Yeah, it's too late.
And they're like reduced to just breathe, man. Like, I'm breathing already.
Yeah.
I'd die if I didn't breathe.
You're not in a good headspace to try that at that point.
Yeah, but if you do it, it's like, oh, that did work.
Well, you know what helped me, Sanger? I have a son who's an entrepreneur, and he would love your podcast. He's in Thailand right now working, but he had major anxiety and major migraines in middle school, and he went to biofeedback. And I don't know if you know what biofeedback is, but it's basically training your brain to relax your body, and you get feedback from your body. So he would have a little temperature thing where he could tell his body to warm up, and that would help his migraines. And I've done it, and a lot of people in my profession do it. And I've gone to learn biofeedback myself, but you can control your heart rate, you can control your breathing. And the best way to control all of those bodily responses, all those fight or flight reactions that we have, which would cause us to make really poor decisions most of the time. Sometimes they're good because they're survival decisions, but for like good long-term decisions, we don't want to be in fight or flight. And one of the best ways you can do that is breathing. And for me, after Hurricane Harvey, I live in Houston, and my whole neighborhood was decimated except my house. My husband and my son were rescuing people in kayaks. I developed a cough, an anxious cough, and I could not get rid of it. It's not good to be a counselor who coughs all the time, or a public speaker or a podcaster who coughs all the time. And breathing, I would look at my Fitbit or my Apple Watch, and I would do the Breathe app, and the recommended breathing rate is 5.6 per breath. But I think it's you set it on your Breathe app. And when I did that on my Fitbit or on my Apple Watch, I saw my heart rate go from 89 or 99 sometimes down to 40 in 1 minute of doing this 5.6 breaths per minute. And that's the rate that we know, 5.6 breaths calms your body down the most. And when I could see that happening, you feel this incredible power, like, wow, I can do this. I can stop myself from overreacting to something. And so I always tell my clients, I never tell them just breathe. I say, get some sort of, even if you get the $19 Amazon watch that'll let you track it, do the Breathe app and see. When you can see what it's doing to your body, it rewards your brain, and then you want to do it. But I also tell people, you can't just do those things in the state of panic. Grounding you should do every time you mountain bike, every time you go for a walk, every time you're sitting on your front porch, once a day, to kind of bring you back to the present. The breathing exercises, you should do that once in the morning and once before bed, and that will keep you grounded more regularly. It's like maintenance.
The breathing is so important. And the exercises, I think the reminder for people is the exercises are designed to, they're not only good in the moment, but they're designed to have you breathe better when you're not doing the exercise, right? They're not just like this. It's not just this thing you do. It's kind of like praying. Well, I'm not praying just so I'm mindful of my relationship with God while I pray. I'm praying so that I'm more mindful while I'm not praying, right? Because that's when I'm actually doing stuff. Like, I'm not going to sin or make any big mistakes while I'm praying. So the breathing, I trained jujitsu, and one of the original members of the original family who kind of brought jujitsu to the United States, his name is Hickson Gracie. He was the biggest of the family of the brothers that kind of came in and brought it to the country, and widely regarded as one of the best of all time, even though he wasn't as famous as some of his cousins and brothers. And he would say in interviews, like, his main secret was his breath. He would do these weird, like, yoga breathing things where he would practice sucking in his stomach so that you could see, like, his ribs. I mean, he looked like an Auschwitz victim. And this is a 230-pound guy. He would just and his stomach would suck in, like, tight, where his stomach would go from this his front of his body to his back of his body, and it would look like the size of a textbook. And I'll send you a video later. It's amazing looking. And he has all these sort of exercises to do it, to kind of remind himself to be calm so his muscles can work, and so he can actually react in the way that he is trained to react, instead of gritting his teeth, holding his breath.
Right.
Well, if I'm doing that, I'm not getting any oxygen to my muscles. I'm going to fatigue quicker. If I fatigue quicker, I'm not as strong. If I'm not as strong, I can't execute the move as well. And if I can't execute the move as well, I'm going to lose. So the breath in the physical exercise is just like running. I mean, the best runners know how to breathe when they run. They don't mindlessly run and not think about their breath. They would, if you had the choice to think about only your you're breathing or where you put your feet while you're running. The best runner is probably thinking about his breathing, not where to put his feet. You're going to put your feet in the right spot. But oddly enough, we'll forget to breathe. And I find myself doing that all the time. I'm struggling for a particular position or submission or whatever. And I'll just be the whole time. I'm not getting anywhere. And when I'm done and I do remember to breathe, I'm going to be in a worse spot.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in breath. But if you can think about existing in a state of stress or anxiety, and you can recognize, okay, well, if I'm fighting and I'm not breathing, or if I'm running and I'm not breathing, it's bad for my performance in that moment.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're doing to our bodies when we're worried about our family finances.
Right.
And we're sitting there stressing it, or we're talking to our spouse about it. And we notice the entire time we've had this conversation, we're not breathing. Or the entire time
we're
I'm
breathing
looking
too
at,
quickly. Sometimes
or breathing
it's
too
a matter
quickly,
of breathing too quickly, because when we're anxious, we
or
do that
shallowly.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And I think about kids. I've had several ADHD experts on my podcast. And, you know, one of the things they all emphasize is that kids cannot learn when they're anxious. None of us can learn when we're anxious. And so teaching kids how to do this so that they can learn better, but it's adults too, because ultimately, even, you know, your brain thinking of that next move in jiu-jitsu is learning, right? It's reacting. And we can't do that in a state of anxiety, or not well. We don't do it our best. And yes, when our breathing is either too fast or not enough, our body goes into what mimics a state of anxiety, and we're not going to do our best.
Yeah, 100%.
Have you ever seen the video Robert Downey Jr. interviewed by, I think it was Martin Bashir's, I'm maybe getting that wrong, but the interviewer starts asking him, it was one of some movie promo thing he was doing. And the interviewer starts asking him about drug abuse and when he was in jail. And it's like, you know, totally off topic and inappropriate. If you watch Robert Downey Jr., watch his chest during that video, and you can see it rise and fall as he's consciously saying, this is, he's trying to calm himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see his breath. I mean, you don't see people breathe, but you could watch that video.
Yeah.
And Robert Downey Jr. finally leaves the interview, kind of calls it and go, hey, you know, I'm going to go ahead and go. And but it's really interesting.
I know what video you're talking about. I'll watch that.
Yeah, watch it, and you can see his chest move.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was training for marathons, and I'd be running, and you probably had this experience too. I would just focus on breathing while I was running, and there would be periods of time I'm like, I'm going to take 5 breaths in, and then 3 breaths out.
Also
or
helps
whatever
pass the time when you're running 20 miles.
Yeah, when you're running 26 miles, you got to find something.
Oh, I wonder how long it's going to take me to breathe 100 times.
Yeah,
cool. Let's do that again.
Well, and I had a Navy SEAL on my podcast once, and he talked about that. That's a huge part of their training, is breath work. To be able to make split-second decisions, they have to remain in that state of calm.
I would think so. I do some physical therapy work, stretching and things like that.
Yeah.
The woman who does that, she's constantly telling me, she goes, you need to breathe. Remember to breathe, because like it hurts.
Well, yeah, she's like digging her elbow into your sorest thigh.
Right. Yeah. Do you find yourself doing that where you're just like, I'm forgetting to breathe? Yeah.
Yeah, and then you kind of out of it. I'll do that. Sometimes I'm so sore I forget to breathe while I'm like just going to get a snack at the fridge. I'm like, limping over there. Like, oh, that's not good. Yeah. I used to have horrible allergy problems. So like I couldn't eat and breathe at the same time. It's because I couldn't breathe through my nose. So I would have to like chew and then chew again and then breathe through my mouth. I think that was a lot of problems. Can be explained by seasonal allergies in Texas.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something we talked about with grounding too. So I talked about the senses, but there's something I came across years ago that I want to share with y'all because it's been so helpful to my clients. And I know you talk about decisions all the time. I don't know if this kind of technique has been brought up, but I'm Catholic and I love the Jesuits. My sons went to Jesuit high schools, and I've read a lot of St. Ignatius work. And St. Ignatius came up with this principle, and I don't know exactly. He calls it the Ignatian Way of Decision-Making. He talks about like living in your head with the decision. So let's say you have to decide between job A and job B, or moving or not moving. And what I have is a lot of clients who are trying to help their kids pick a college or pick a private high school here in Houston. And so I tell them, live for 24 hours as though you've made decision A. And think about how that would impact. Go through your breakfast, go through your whole day as though you have made decision A, and be in touch with all of your senses. How does it feel? What would it look like? Maybe you don't know what it would smell like, but you think about how that feels through the day, and do that. Try on the decision basically for a day or two, and then try on the other decision for a day or two, and pay attention to how your body feels and how your mind feels. And my clients who go through that exercise, now granted, it takes a couple days. You can't make a quick decision this way, but big decisions like whether to move, whether to take a job, what college to go to, you can take a couple days usually to do those. It always becomes crystal clear to them as they sort of try on both decisions for a day. They can feel in their body and in their head which one is the better decision for them.
Do they find that it's instant? Like when I start sort of really putting myself in that position, I've made decision B, mm-hmm. and I'm starting to assess and take inventory of what I'm thinking, feeling, touching, smelling, so mm-hmm. forth.
Yeah.
Are they finding that is an instant clarification of the appropriateness of the decision, or do they finding they're having to go back and keep reflecting on it, or what?
I mean, the clients that I've done it, and I've done it myself, they usually know, let's say they're deciding between buying a new house or staying in their current house. And they try on the decision first of if we move to this other house. They can usually tell by the end of that day, and they don't even need to try on the second decision. But I have them do it anyway. I have them try on the second decision and give that the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I mean, I usually think they know within a day or two. I don't think they know within 10 minutes.
Yeah. I think I unintentionally did that in college,
Mm-hmm.
and it prevented me from joining the Army. So I went to Texas A&M, which is a senior military college. I was a member of the Corps of Cadets, and for the first time in my life, I was getting social pressure to join the Army. I had never considered it, never wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. My great granddad was in the Navy, like that. We're not a military family. So it's just not something I ever really thought I would do. I get there and it's like, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Most of these guys are going into the Army. And a lot of them knew that since they were 4 years old. That's all they've ever wanted to do. So I kind of get talked into it by one of my friends. I'm like, all right, okay, maybe I'll enlist in the Army and I'll be an officer and I'll do this. And so I go talk to the recruiter and I'm in it. I'm like one signature away at this point from being in the Army. And my friend acted as if that was what I had decided, even though I was still kind of deciding.
Oh, wow.
And so he started to tell everyone, yeah, Sanger's enlisting. Yeah, Sanger's. And so people started to interact with me as if that was the case. And they started to talk about things that I was going to obviously do next. And so I started to hear other people talk about my future based on a decision that I was still deliberating. And I realized so quickly that I did not want to do that. I mean, I couldn't sleep.
Wow. You knew that was the wrong decision.
I was just like, this is not for me, man. I don't want any part of this. And, God bless the people that do it. It was not for me.
And you paid attention to what your body was telling you. See, that's the thing. If you're not grounded, you miss those signals.
Yeah.
but you really paid attention to how it felt and you knew it didn't feel right. And I don't think we should make decisions solely on what we feel. Obviously, we need logic and information, but you really saw, you had that too. You had the information, but you really paid attention to this just doesn't, you tried it on. Well, people kind of tried it on for you and you knew it wasn't right.
So how do you differentiate between making decisions based on being grounded and making decisions based on just sort of what I'm feeling and, you know, just like how it feels, right? The emotion of it.
Yeah.
That's got to be a fine line.
I think time is key. I think people rush things and emotions balance out over time. And so I think we always should take as much time as we can, not delay decisions or procrastinate. That's entirely different. But take time making decisions, gathering all the information. I don't, and people might, you know, criticize me for this, but I don't think we should always trust our gut. Some people's guts are off. I see it all the time. I see people in my practice who date total narcissists over and over and over again. They should not trust their gut. They should trust other people. They should trust other information. They should.
Hold on. That made me think of someone that Sean and I both know, where they were talking about a relationship, and he said, "So everything that you think you should do the opposite of that. You'll be fine."
You should not trust your gut.
So, and I mean, we laugh about that, but imagine how hard that must be going through life where you can't trust your gut. And it's usually people who've had trauma or a history of maybe abusive parents, or so their gut is really kind of messed up. You know, they don't have a good compass for making good decisions. And so, you know, you hear all the time, and it sounds like, oh, trust your gut, trust your gut. Not everybody should do that. So you need to balance it with information.
I don't know what it's like to, I mean, obviously I've made bad decisions before.
Really?
But I'm going to get ahead of that before you smack me down. But, but I don't feel like I can't trust my gut.
Yeah.
You know, sure, maybe I can't think of an example, but I'm sure I've made decisions based on my gut.
I
that
give
have
you
been
plenty
wrong,
of examples if you want.
Yeah, okay, whatever. But my point is, I don't feel like my gut
saying
is just
or most people don't.
wrong. But
yeah, you wouldn't.
No, but
like, well, I don't think nobody says I can't trust my gut.
Obviously, some of her patients do.
No, she said they shouldn't trust their gut. They shouldn't trust their gut.
Yeah, not many people have that self-awareness. Some people
my gut has made me money and relationships, and it's worked for me.
Your gut's good.
So what I'm saying is that the people who can't trust their gut, is it really that they can't trust their gut, or are they making decisions based on other factors and unable to articulate that?
Oh, I think that's a really good point. I think it's varied. It depends on the person. And honestly, the people I work with, that when they come to me, and they probably shouldn't trust their gut because their past history shows that it's led them in the wrong places. When we dig, their gut probably was telling them something different and they were ignoring it. So they need to learn how to listen to their instincts better and ignore maybe impulses or past patterns. And I kind of get them to a place where they can learn to trust their gut. I get them to a place where they can shift their perspective and have different expectations of people. So I think the people that can't really trust their gut can get there, just like the people that aren't grounded or don't know that the pond is next to them can get there. It just takes sort of some work.
So how do you deliver the message to people that they shouldn't be trusting their gut? That's going to be a tough message to deliver, to say, you know, you are not great at decision making. You should bring in some other factors into the equation.
I tell them their picker is broken.
Yeah. Well.
That, you know, if it's relationships, I tell them their picker is broken. They know. Listen, they know. That's why they're coming to me. They know that what they've done thus far has not proven to be very beneficial.
Yeah, they may have a sense of openness to that sort of feedback, I guess, if they're talking to you.
Yeah. And I'm pretty blunt. And the clients that like me, they like that. You know, there are a lot of people who do my job who will listen to you talk about your life and say, and how does that make you feel? And I don't do that. And that's why I really call what I do coaching more, because I want to get people moving more quickly in a healthy direction. I validate their feelings and their experiences. And then I say, okay, what can we do differently? Because this isn't working. What can we do differently? That's a question I'm always asking my clients, because that's why they're coming. If everything was working really well, they wouldn't be coming to my office.
Right.
So I think my clients in particular appreciate that. I'm sure there are some that don't. Some just want to be told that what they're doing is great, and they're going to keep doing the same thing.
And those people will pay some money to have that message delivered to them, and they will never improve their life. But
exactly,
they will not show up at your doorstep or my doorstep or Sean's doorstep and stick around for very long. Thank you so much, Kim, for taking the time to be with us. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I know Sean learned a lot.
Thank you, guys.
I learned all the things I'll coach you on later.
Thanks. And I want to know if you hear laundry detergent on your next, or
I will let you know if I smell it today.
Yeah.
Where can people get a hold of you and find your work?
So I'm on Instagram at Dr. Kim Swales, SWALES. And I have a website, www.kimswales.com. And I have a podcast called Connecting with Dr. Kim Swales. And I talk to everybody about connection, relationships, parenting, marriage, friendship, social media, anxiety, depression, ADHD, you name it. If it's in the realm of connection, psychology, relationships, we've got an episode on it.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, guys.
Well, my takeaway from our discussion with Dr. Kim Swales is really around, if I am feeling physically uncomfortable, emotionally hurt, or at a high anxiety state, it's going to be hard for me to get grounded. And so I've got to get myself in a position where I'm in touch with those senses, and the breathing is really important to get grounded. If I can do that, I'm in a better space to make better decisions.
My biggest takeaway was when we talked about the Ignatian style of decision making, to live with that decision, act as if that is the decision that you've made. So if you're pondering a decision, instead of weighing the pros and cons and going back and forth, simply act as if you made that choice. What would your life be like? Imagine yourself having made that decision, and then you will be able to see if the consequences of that choice are something you could bear. You just made a great decision to listen to this episode of Decidedly. Make another great decision and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate your support. It helps others find our community and defeat bad decision-making in their own lives. For more daily decision-making insights, check us out at decidedlypodcast.com and on Facebook and Instagram at Decidedly Podcast. Thanks again for listening. I'm Sanger Smith, and this is Decidedly.
Insights, advice, and comments provided by Sean Smith, Sanger Smith, and speakers identified as part of the Decidedly podcast should not be considered recommendations. Speakers not identified as members of Decidedly are expressing their opinion, and their statements should not be construed as reflecting the views of the Decidedly team. This podcast is produced solely for informational purposes, not personalized advice.